We've got an Arctic blast taking shape across the eastern and central United States and a major lake effect snow event. And I think that this is why we're going to continue to see these northwest flow snow events. It's going to be really cold, maybe even heading into the first week of December with multiple chances of snow. It's just looking very cold to me, in my opinion anyway. Thanks for coming by today, guys. If you're new to the channel, thanks so much for stopping over. A lot of you have subscribed. If you want to help the channel out, that really does, so I do appreciate it. If you're new, I'm Travis Roberts. I used to be on television, was a chief meteorologist for years, but now we're here on YouTube. So come on back and let's analyze the weather together. Let's look at what's going on. First of all, across the country, we've got some really cold air starting to billow and develop here across parts of Canada. That's going to be moving south as we head into the weekend. Thanksgiving Day, let's look at your national outlook. Dry across the west for a change, right? We've seen storm after storm after storm. Not the case as we head into the next week or so. The Northeast, though, we've got an active pattern setting up here. First, we're going to get our decent snow heading into the mountains of the Catskills, up into the Green and White Mountains of Vermont, into the mountains of Maine, interior sections of Maine, not along the coast. We're going to see some heavy snow through Friday, and now our winds spin out of the northwest, and the lake effect snow machine is on. And that snow could get heavy downwind of all of the Great Lakes as some really Arctic air starts to build in. This pattern looks like it's going to stick around too as we get this cyclonic flow developing on Friday into Saturday out of the northwest, and that's going to push some cold air too below normal all the way into the south, with temperatures dropping a good 10 to 20 degrees below average. And in my opinion, it looks like this sets up for some time. We've got this strong northwest flow around a decent upper level cyclonic flow into the northeast. Do you see these impulses that move here into the west coast along the jet stream drop south? And does that bring some surprise snow with some what we call Alberta clippers? And that's where they originate up here in Western Canada, or Manitoba maulers, Saskatchewan screamers. Do we see anything like that over the next week? If you're going to see a pattern that sets up for that, it's this one. I showed this map a couple of days ago. Someone said, why do you show something without numbers? Because if I showed you these numbers, it's confusing. This is the 850 millibar chart. This is the temperature of the air up a couple of thousand feet in the atmosphere. The reason meteorologists use this is because it gives you an idea of what the air temperature is, not being influenced by daytime heating, nighttime cooling. Look what we got here. Strong line here of where your temperature differences are. Normally, that's where your storm track is going to be. And by the way, here are some of those numbers. You can see 10 to 20 degrees below 0 Celsius and above 0 here across Texas. This is, again, 850 millibar chart. There's your line. And that's where your storm path will likely set up. And that's what we're seeing in some of the models as these systems continue to dive in out of the northwest, which we're going to look at that much closer in a second. Let's start off across the west. We'll go left to right here. Not much to talk about here. This is going to be pretty quick over the next week or so. Not much snow falling here. That's a change. Normally we see big snows, and we've seen that the last couple of weeks. Now our snow shifting here into the northeast, specifically downwind of the Great Lakes. And do we see some surprise snow trying to stripe out here from the Midwest down into maybe arguably the Ohio Valley into the Tennessee Valley? Maybe our first snow for some of these areas. Our first area of low pressure moving toward the northeast. It's going to deepen as it gets close to the coast. That could put some heavy snow down here into the higher elevations above 1,500 feet, with wind and rain otherwise here as we move through Thanksgiving Day along the coast down into the Carolinas. Not as much rain across the south, though, as our front sort of dies out. Not a lot of moisture with it, but we do have quite a bit of moisture here getting pulled in off the Atlantic into the northeast. That's going to put heavy snow into interior sections of the northeast into Maine. And then that moves away pretty quickly. And now the lake effect snow machine is on as our cold Arctic air builds across the unfrozen, relatively warm waters of the Great Lakes compared to the cold air that's moving across. That's going to generate a lot of instability. Think about it. You've got that warm air right at the lake surface generated by that water. Above it, you've got really cold air. And then that develops what we call steep lapse rates. Think about a hot air balloon. What does it do? You throw the flame to it, it goes up. You can imagine the amount of instability we're going to get with air that's going to be well below 0 once you get up into the thousands of feet. And the cap, that would be where the air stops rising, could go up to 10,000 feet at points. So now you've got these huge, almost cumulus clouds just dropping tons of snow, if you will, downwind of all of the Great Lakes. In the short term, though, the snow will be limited, again, at the higher elevations through Thursday and Friday here along the New York-PA border. No snow for Rochester, Buffalo. This is going to be down into the mountains, even towards Binghamton. We're talking about the higher elevations over toward the Catskills and above 1,500 feet. We could see a light coating into the valleys, but into the northeast, that's where the heaviest snow, in my opinion, is going to be here. Southern Vermont, into New Hampshire, into Maine, 6 to 12 inches, and the higher amounts would be into the ridges and the mountaintops. But a good, decent snow here into the northeast as we head through Thanksgiving. Cold start on Thanksgiving morning across the Central Plains and not warming up much here. 20s and 30s all the way into the northern plains, up into North Dakota and Minnesota. We're talking about single digits and teens for highs. Further south, I mean, look, even Dallas really not getting out of the 40s. Same for Oklahoma. That cold air pushing south all the way to the Gulf Coast with temperatures dropping here too. Quite modified though, right? You've got that air moving across a lot of land where we're not seeing a lot of ground. It's covered by snow. That's across Saskatchewan and Manitoba, Alberta. We just got some snow here, acting almost like an insulator, if you will, and that's allowing some of that cold air to move south. Now, here's the deal. It's going to move across the Great Lakes. It's going to be modified, so the temperatures not going to be nearly this cold, but that's some pretty cold air that's moving south. Again, that's what's going to generate that heavy lake effect snow event in this region. Let's get into some of those details. East of the lakes, that's where the snow is going to be. We've got a westerly component. And if you look at the analogs back at situations like this, places like the Tug Hill Plateau, the Chautauqua Ridge here off of Lake Erie, that's where we see the big snows here, not Buffalo, not Rochester with this type of setup. How much are we going to see? Maybe 2-3 feet of snow, in my opinion, all the way through Monday and Tuesday. Those amounts may be even more. It just depends. I mean, some of these models are putting out close to 4 feet of snow. Some areas even more. Here's Buffalo. And by the way, I'm going to back this up because some of the snow that's showing in Buffalo, that's not lake effect. That's the influence of those northwest systems that dive in that could drop a little bit of snow from Toronto, Buffalo, Southern Ontario here in this region. But otherwise, the snow is going to be limited with that westerly flow off the lakes here. I-90 could be wild. Some of the wording out of the National Weather Service is talking about roads could be closed, and you could see why. When you get 3-4 feet of snow, and especially away from the lake plain. Now, right here, I-90 gets pretty close to the lake, but it gets away from it here once you get down into Erie. Right along the lake, we could see some rain mixing in at times just because of that warm lake water, but get away from the lakes. There's some higher elevations here, quite a few ridges. Snow's going to add up. Jamestown, get ready. The snow is coming your way over the next couple of days. And Cleveland, most of the heavy snow is going to be northeast of town, but I think there's a chance that we see some decent snow out of this. Once you head south of that, maybe on I-77 into the rest of Ohio, very little snow. Once you get south of Akron and Canton, and then into northeast PA again, Pennsylvania, Erie. Look at the model, trying to drop 43 inches of snow here. Again, there's going to be some lake influence here too, so I don't know if it's going to be that much, but this is going to be a major event here into Pennsylvania and New York. Also into Michigan, decent snows here too, off of the lakes. Grand Rapids, we're going to see some snow. Not a lot of snow once you get here really east of central Michigan. The snow plumes may extend a little further east if you get a couple of strong ones, and the setup of these exactly where they're going to be are really kind of up in the air. But regardless, the lake effect snow machine is going to turn on here. Also Lake Superior, the UP of Michigan is going to get some heavy snow. And then off of Lake Huron here into southern Ontario, a lot of that's not going to move very far to the east. Again, not pushing into Hamilton, not pushing into Toronto. It's here, right just off the shore of Lake Huron. Temperatures on Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, cold across the east. I can remember many Thanksgivings where I'm out in shorts and a t-shirt and we're throwing footballs and frisbees and all that. If that's what you're doing across Indiana, Ohio, and Missouri tomorrow, you are a tougher person than I with temperatures in the 30s. You got to get south, though, the Piedmont of North Carolina, down into Georgia. We're in the 60s and 70s in Florida. Let's move things ahead in time. There's your system that moves through as we move through the Thursday and Friday time frame. There's the northwest flow, and watch these systems that dive in from the northwest in this northwest flow. We've got one questionable one as we move into Saturday. This looks pretty weak. There could be a more significant one developing heading into Sunday, dropping south into Monday and Tuesday. Does that bring a stripe of snow into Iowa, Minnesota? Well, it may put some snow into Minnesota. I said that pretty quickly. I meant to say Missouri, Indiana, Illinois. This could be our first snow here into Lexington, Louisville. Maybe. Not a lot, not a big snow event, but maybe some flakes. And does it put the snow into East Tennessee with this type of setup? You may say so. The question is going to be timing these out in this broad northwest flow. Now we're looking at about a week out, but the pattern is there. And I can tell you historically, when you see these types of setups, you get cold, you get snow, and you keep the northwest impulses just coming in. And this is really far out, just so you see what's going on. This ridge holding pretty tight across the west with some cold air across the east. Let's really get down the road here and look at the long-term European weeklies. Take this and do with it what you will. And if you have an opinion on if it's going to stay cold or not, let me know in the comments down below. I hear from folks all the time. They say it's going to hit, it's over. It's no winter, cancel winter. So is that just like a gut feeling, or maybe that's what's happened in the past? But it could happen, right? I could be wrong. You could be right. You could be wrong. I could be right. Who knows, right? We're looking out further in time. And when you look at these long-term patterns, what are you looking for? A pattern. I see a northwest flow pattern that continues into December. Does that mean we're below average all month into January? Honestly, I don't know. My gut feeling, it's going to be a cold December in the central and eastern United States, specifically into the east. I'll be interested to see what the Climate Prediction Center puts out in a couple of days. I'll have that, plus maybe even a longer range outlook, more than just the coding that we're talking about here. So if you like this kind of content, I hope you'll come back and consider subscribing. If you want to help, if you hit the thumbs up, it does help the channel. See you next time.